It is Ilana here with
Jason.
This is Ex Post Watcho, and this week I'm very excited to watch a movie that was kind of special to me in my youth. It is the classic Encino Man. Jason, have you seen Encino Man?
I have not seen Encino Man.
This movie came out in 1992, so we were only young. We were young ones. But I watched this on I think I turned 11. 11 is when you're in grade 6, right?
I never know the answer to that question.
Anyway, I turned 11 or 12, and we watched this at my birthday party. And it was my last birthday, my last party. It was kind of like a goodbye and happy birthday before I left the kind of area that I grew up in. So, I don't know why I chose Encino Man to screen at this particular party, but I did, and I do not regret it. I loved this movie. We laughed so hard. So it's about a couple of dudes, I guess, in California, in Encino, and they find a caveman. He's like frozen, or I don't know. There's a caveman. They thaw him, and then they try to integrate him into modern or 1992 contemporary society in California. And hijinks ensue. Brendan Fraser, who is, I think, highly underappreciated, grossly underappreciated. That's stupid. He's underappreciated, Brendan Fraser. Pauly Shore's in this, and Sean Astin is in this. So, bunch of dudes from the time.
Is this movie heavy on Pauly Shore? How much Pauly Shore should I expect out of this?
I think you should expect a high level of Pauly Shore. Gross level of Pauly Shore.
This is like the Terror Alert in the early 2000s where they had like these different meters, but it's Pauly Shore.
Yeah.
Pauly
it's
Shore
like high.
Meter is high.
Yeah. It's like close to red.
Stock up on canned goods.
Yeah. Yes. This is a very early 90s movie. I can't really remember anything that happens. There were some moments we thought were really funny and some lines that we thought were really funny. How's your melon, buddy? That was a big one.
That sounds like a Pauly Shore line.
Yeah, I think it was. How's your melon, buddy? Like, it was very... Did I upset you by that was a pretty good Pauly Shore impression.
No,
Did it throw you off? Are you okay?
I mean, I'm working my way into it, so it's good to get these small doses of Pauly Shore isms before I see the real thing. Great.
Are you not a Pauly Shore fan?
Actually, I don't know. He kind of is like sort of a joke reference to the 90s, because there was this period of like a couple years where he was in a ton of movies.
Yeah, it was everything Pauly Shore all the time.
Yeah, but I actually don't like. I remember Biodome. I've seen that one.
Yeah. I've never seen Biodome.
That could be a fun one, I guess. I don't even know if it's a good movie or not.
Major
Pain.
I don't think this is a good movie. It got very bad reviews, but I enjoyed it when I was younger. I'm anticipating that I'm going to have a very different perspective and things will make a little bit more sense to me now. Do you have any expectations? What do you know about this movie?
I remember like seeing the trailer when it came about, and like I know the premise is like, yeah, they find someone who's been frozen forever, and they, thaw him out and put him into the world, and hijinks ensues. But that's about it. I literally all I know is like Brendan Fraser, Pauly Shore, and I guess Sean Astin is in this. He's one of the leads, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's two friends. I think it's Pauly Shore and Sean Astin, and they come across. And like happens when you just find a frozen body, they just reanimate. I don't know if it was like, if there was a storm or something and like lightning hit this guy. I don't know, Frankenstein style. I'm not really sure. I was looking up the director, so Les Mayfield is his name. He was kind of all over the place. So he did Miracle on 34th Street and Flubber. And then He also did Blue Streak and American Outlaws. So I don't know what's up with Les Mayfield, but he's just kind of all over the map. He's just trying his hand at all kinds of things. I don't know that I've seen any of those movies, but Flubber was a big hit with many people of my younger sister's age. So look, if we're going to go into this with any expectations based on this director's work.
I mean, if you're telling me this is the guy who directed Flubber, my expectations are starting to go up a little bit.
All right, well, I'm curious. I have no idea what to expect with this. I think it's going to be really stupid, but Brendan Fraser is very charming, so I think there will be at least, I don't know, maybe I'll love it. I don't know.
I mean, in 1992, that's got to be pretty early Brendan Fraser. Like, was this like one of his first roles?
Yeah, I think so, because I think mid to late 90s, he was doing like George of the Jungle and Blast from the Past, which I was talking to you about earlier, which you've not seen. I think that was kind of all around. And The Mummy.
The Mummy, yes.
That was big. Yeah. No, I think this is one of his first roles. I don't know. He's been in like everything. He's great. I'm excited to revisit Brendan Fraser at very least.
Yeah, this looks like some just 90s garbage, but the kind that I'm very interested in seeing. I suspect I'll probably hate this in a lot of ways, but probably enjoy it in a lot of ways. That's where my head's at right now.
It'll really be a nice glimpse or an interesting glimpse at what was going on in pop culture at that time. And anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Let me make some predictions. So
okay.
I'm looking at the poster right now, and he's riding a skateboard. So like clearly, like they're gonna have to teach him about like rock and roll. Maybe he'll shred the guitar. That would take a while to learn, but maybe he'll try.
I think there's some rock and roll.
I predict they'll take a Walkman and put the earphones on his head and hit play, and he'll like freak out because it'll be like, wow, what is this noise?
Similar to a Ferngully style.
Oh yeah, maybe I'm just like cribbing Ferngully here. Will there be a big dance scene where he dances around?
Yeah. I bet will he fall in love? I don't even know. I bet he will. I bet he'll fall in love, and it'll be some really smart, sweet girl who's like, I'm so sick of these dude jock jerks. And then she'll fall in love with this caveman.
So, which, poses some interesting ethical questions of like, what is his like mental capacity as a caveman?
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to have to teach him how to speak English. I want to know, this is what I'm going to be looking for. Over what period of time does this movie take place? I don't think it's like several years. I feel like it's probably a couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on. I might have a beverage or two before I dig into this one because I might need it.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Again, prepping yourself for Pauly Shore.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're like pre-game Pauly Shore. Well, I'm going to go do that.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, let's go watch Encino Man, and we'll be back to talk about it in just a few moments. Okay, so we're back. We have just watched Encino Man. I almost said Bill and Ted's.
You almost said California Man?
California Man. Yeah, no.
The UK title?
UK title. Where else? New Zealand and France or something like that? Some just very random places.
I'll just say when I was a kid, I didn't know what Encino was. I thought that was like...
I did not, yeah. Some reference to like cave people.
Yeah, it's just the town name. It's an actual place. I wonder if they picked it just because it sounds like vaguely related to history. Cavemen. Anyway, sorry, I'm interrupting your welcome back part.
How dare you? I was going to give a really beautiful, moving, stirring speech about Bill and Ted and Wayne and Garth. This is just like, yeah. So we've watched this poor man's version of Bill and Ted's. I think is fair to say. 15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oof.
which makes sense after rewatching this. But I did have a few laughs. How do you feel about your Encino Man viewing?
I think that's a pretty good description. It's not a good movie. I would not really want to recommend it to anybody for any reason, unless you're interested in like the things it has going for it are it's one of those like early 90s high school California movies, which like if you just kind of want to like, you know, be nostalgic about high school, or what, if you were me, what you thought high school was going to be like, but actually was not like, then it fulfills that need. Otherwise, I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, I was pretty bored. I was not expecting to be bored of all things, but I was bored. To be honest, near the end, I kind of stopped paying attention to what was going on. Because I was like thinking about work and just like, just anything else other than this movie.
Encino Man was not like strong enough to suck you in and make you forget like all of the other problems in your life.
No, and I was hoping it would be. But I mean, like I said, I did still like chuckle a few times. There were some moments that were funny. And like you said, it's kind of for nostalgia's sake, it was entertaining. Maybe that's not the best word. It was a okay glimpse into the past. So I initially thought that maybe, okay, so the whole story is Brendan Fraser is a caveman. He's providing for his cave woman, and their cave falls in on them, and they apparently are immediately flash frozen. And then we fast forward to like 1992, Encino, California. Dave, played by Sean Astin, he is digging a pool so that specifically for a party, one party after prom, so that he will be popular because he's been a loser this whole time. But this one night and this one pool and this one pool party, they're going to make him popular. He's going to be like, I'll show them with this pool. And his buddy, Stoney, which at first I was like, oh, Stoney like Stone Age. But no, Stoney like stoned perpetually. Or both. Pauly Shore, he's there being like, dude, be weird. It's cool. And sometimes he was talking. I honestly couldn't understand him half the time. I was like, Dave's dad at one point is like, speak English. That's how I felt. I felt really old and out of touch trying to interpret what Pauly Shore's Stoney was saying. So anyway, Dave's digging away, and it's not a lightning strike. He finds a bowl, and then somehow that bowl, the bowl's insignificant. So anyway, there's a bowl, and then they find a frozen man who's Brendan Fraser, and they bring him into the garage instead of like immediately calling like, I guess who the fuck do you call when you find something like that?
911.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm gonna just let this, we'll come back tomorrow, I guess. I don't know. They go off and they kind of just kick it for a bit. And in the meantime, Brendan Fraser thaws out. And then they get into some trouble.
Yeah, okay, so the plot of this doesn't make any sense. Like, what you've just described is kind of nonsense. And that I think is one of the things about this movie is that like the initial plot, the initial thing that kicks it off is like, yeah, Sean Astin is like, he thinks he's a loser. He wants to become popular. So he's digging a pool for some reason. Like, I guess like that is the thing that's going to win people over, which even that is odd. Like the opening shot of the movie is all these like insanely nice houses with giant pools. So like what is remarkable about that he's building himself, which I'm sure is not up to code of any sort. Like, I don't think this is legal. Someone could die. There'll be like an insurance issue. Yeah, and then like the plan when they find when they find Brendan Fraser is like, this is going to make us popular. But then, which at the time it seemed like the discovery of Brendan Fraser frozen in ice, that was the thing that was going to make them popular. But then he thaws out and he becomes like a living human being, and they're like, okay, his like the fact that he's this caveman come back to life, that's going to make us popular. But then they just disguise him as another student, a foreign exchange student, which defeats the whole purpose. He's just a guy at that point.
He's Linkovich Tronovsky from Estonia.
Yeah.
Which then morphs into Estonia.
Fakey McFakerson.
Yeah, they don't even disguise him very well. Literally not one thing in this movie makes sense. I mean, I wasn't expecting I knew this wasn't like an art film, or like anything that was going to be like top-notch filmmaking, but nothing makes sense. There's no point. This is the most anticlimactic movie I think I've ever watched. There's no rhyme or reason to anything. Yeah,
nobody in this movie, maybe other than Pauly Shore, behaves like the way a normal person would. Like, just the way people react to things. One of the notes I wrote was like, if you actually took this movie seriously, like the events that are happening, and played them out as like a real event that you would read about in the newspaper, you'd be like, this is horrifying. This is really a tragic story about these like narcissistic teenagers who just like ruthlessly exploit this like vulnerable, human being who has no language skills or personal connections whatsoever. Also, yeah, and like the way everyone else reacts to it is they're just like, oh, he's just kooky. He's a wacky foreign exchange student.
Yeah, and like all the girls at school are all horned up over it. He literally says not like one thing except for maybe gazongas. Is that what he says?
He says Betty a bunch. Gazungas, maybe?
Gazungas. What does he call breasts? Anyway, and they're like, yeah.
Like, Rose McGowan is like, he's rude. She described him as rude. I was like...
But it was like...
Nice.
It was like sexy.
But he hadn't even done anything at that point. Like, I think that was just when he walked in the door, and she's just like, oh. I mean, he is like 6'4" or something. I don't know how tall Brendan Fraser is, but he's like way taller than anyone else in that school.
That's true. I feel like this was just a chance to like show off Brendan Fraser at that point. Okay. So you were talking about Pauly Shore's character, Stoney. I expected him to be the most hated character because Pauly Shore is very divisive. And he was the most likable. He was super annoying first. I mean, let's acknowledge that. But he was actually quite charming. And I was like, I would hang out with this guy. He was the only one in this entire movie, I think, that wasn't a complete asshole. Except for like Brendan Fraser's caveman.
Yeah, I went into this like, Pauly Shore. Everybody hates Pauly Shore. He was a big thing in the 90s for a brief window of time, and then that abruptly ended, and we haven't heard. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he's up to these days, but I was expecting that to be the big thing in this movie that I hated, and I figured like Sean Astin, he seems okay. I've seen him in a couple movies. I'm sure he'll just be the.
He's recently been on Stranger Things. We all love Sean Astin.
Yeah, so I was like, he's going to be like the nerdy guy, you know what I mean? Kind of the straight man, and Pauly Shore will be really wacky, and then of course Brendan Fraser will be extremely wacky. But in reality, Sean Astin's character is like a psychopath. Like I was kind of blown away at just how clearly like self-absorbed he is, and how he just constantly makes decisions that are, and he states it out loud. Like, I'm doing this to get popular. We're going to bring this guy in to, to make me popular, and then I'll get the girl. And like, it just kind of goes on and on and on. And like, finally, I think at the very end, like he does have a change of heart.
Does he? Okay. First of all, I think Dave is a full-on incel. He's absolutely horrifying. His whole thing about being popular is that Robin, who somehow they know each other from youth, that's never really explained what that relationship is. By the way, he carries out a picture of them when they were kids having a bath together.
Yeah, that was a weird move. I did not understand that.
Oh my God. It was horrifying. I'm trying to find, I wrote it down, like, what he said to her. He's like, anyway, I can't find it. I'm so
He says, like, we've already been naked together.
Yeah, it's like, hey, remember the time we were naked together? They're like at a hockey rink. He just pulls it out and she's like, Dave. And sometimes she's nice to him and sometimes she's not. It's very confusing what this relationship is, but he is obsessed with her. Later on, he ends up in prison. We can talk about that nightclub in a bit, or day club, whatever that was. He ends up in prison and he's like, hey, Robin, I have one call and I'm using it to call you to ask you to prom. What? So then she rejects him and then she's like, I actually kind of want to go with Link, this guy who literally cannot speak or he understands more than he should for being like thought out for like 2 days or something.
Yeah.
But
he's charismatic.
He's charismatic. He's sweet. He's handsome. Great. He's tall. Apparently women like tall guys. That's what my male friends keep telling me, like, women only like tall guys. So I guess it's a thing.
I'm 6 foot tall, so I don't say it that way.
You're an acceptable height.
Yeah, I'm just like, women like tall guys. I can't do anything about it.
So she rejects Dave, which, fair enough. Anybody should reject someone like Dave, someone who has been stalking you and like obsessed and fixated on you since you had a bath together when you were like 4 or something. And then he gets, okay, so then she asks him to ask Link if he'll go to prom with her. And then Dave gets upset and then she's like, we could all go together, like as a group.
Yeah, she like takes the bullet there.
This was psychotic. Okay, so anyway, I'm getting worked up about this. I got to calm down.
What I think is interesting, or I guess kind of confusing, is that like if you just take the narrative and kind of, abstract it away and like make a new script based on it, you're like, high school kid wants to impress a girl that he's had a crush on for a long time. That's not that weird. I think that, like that's just a sort of trope of teen movies. But like the way they wrote it, it's like at every piece of dialogue they gave him, they're like, let's make it as unlikable as possible. Like he's not like an egregious jerk. You know what I mean? Like, but he kind of, he comes close a lot of times where you're like, damn, dude, like I wouldn't say that, like, because when he calls her in the prison, he's like, yeah, this is my call in prison. I'm calling you. So just say yes. That was the way he ended that line. I'm like, well, it's not cool, man. Yeah.
And then she didn't. And then he got jealous. And then he takes this thawed man that he's been basically daddy to for the past, who knows how long, a couple weeks maybe. Packs a backpack and a skateboard and a handful of change and is like, see you later, buddy, and drives him out into the middle of nowhere because he's so upset. He's like, he's got to go. What? And the only reason he didn't was because he was intercepted by the hero of the story, Stoney, who was like, hey, buddy, maybe you're like being kind of insane here.
Yeah, that scene really like sealed the deal of just like how unlikable that character is, because again, if you imagine any of this is at all real, you're like, well, what would happen if he did this? And you're like, that guy's just going to go wander the streets. He has no ID. He can't speak the language. Like, he's just going to be a homeless guy. That's what he's like. Basically, he kind of like lets him go maybe by some woods. I don't know if he expected he would like just go live out there or something.
It was like a country road.
Yeah. So that was pretty terrifying. And Pauly Shore, Stoney, is like the complaint you would have against him as a person, I guess, is he has an annoying way of talking. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of his big sin, is just like he just says silly things all the time, which in the real world, when it's Pauly Shore, it's normal to be mad at that. But in the movie, you're just like, oh, he's just like this wacky guy. That's his thing. Because Pauly Shore hasn't permeated the mass culture in the world of Encino Man.
Yeah.
So it's just bizarre that like I ended up like by the end of the movie like totally liking his character. I was like, he's an okay guy. I would have no problem being around that person.
Yeah, I thought
Dave
he was
can go
charming.
fuck himself.
Yeah. Dave was so creepy. His family was very weird. They're like sitting. Okay, so we were talking about Link thaws out. They give him this big makeover. So he's presentable.
There's a lot of like wacky either montages or just scenes, you know what I mean? Like a lot of this movie is just zany scenes, and like the makeover is kind of that.
Yeah. They put like every household item into his bath. It looked like they were like pouring bleach and like floor cleaner into the bathtub.
They could have accidentally made ammonia. How irresponsible is that?
You would think that Pauly Shore's character would know that, because they throw in there a few times that he's a big Jeopardy fan. So he's much smarter than he might appear. But that, again, that goes nowhere. It has no consequence in the story. So yeah, they're sitting around at the table. So his parents come home. They're out someplace. And they see this like tall Brendan Fraser. And they're like, who's this kooky guy? And Sean asks him, like, don't you remember? He's our exchange student. I get extra credit. And they're like, oh, I don't remember that. Oh, well, you must be right. Clearly his parents aren't around much. And
90s movie.
90s, yeah. And then they sit down for a meal. And I don't know what kind of condiment it was. It looked absolutely horrifying. He's like squirting like this kind of yellow mayonnaise type of thing just directly into his mouth. At one point he gets on the floor and starts eating out of the dog bowl. And nobody bats an eye. Everyone's just like, anyway, you should speak better, Stoney. Like, no one's paying attention to what Brendan Fraser is doing. It was weird.
Yeah, everything in this movie kind of like this movie takes place in another dimension where people don't question zany things that are happening in front of them. It's all, they just kind of accept it, or like, yeah, we'll take the flimsiest excuse of like, that's why this is happening.
That's true. But okay, there are cracks in this theory that you have, though, of another dimension. Because the jerk, okay, so the girl, I can't remember her name now. What's her name? Robin.
Robin, yeah.
Robin is the name of the woman, the young woman, the girl that Dave is like obsessed and stalking. So she's dating the jerk jock. And then the jerk jock is like, something's wrong with this big guy because my girlfriend's into him. And they break into the administrative office at the school and find his file. And the first page is like about flea shots and stuff. And they're like, this is a dog's vet record. So somehow these dickheads figured that out in like literally seconds. And the school's administration failed. They have for some reason they have a file on him, but apparently didn't look at it. Is he registered? Is he just showing up? He must be, because he goes and he starts stunt driving a vehicle in their driving class later on. What is happening? So anyway, the jerks don't seem to be living on the same kind of wavelength as everyone else.
Maybe there's a weird hidden theme to this movie, which is like when you're motivated to find out the truth versus when you're apathetic, or I don't know. Because, I mean, he had a motivation to like figure out what was going on because he hated the guy. And he did, like, when they were at the museum and they were like comforting him because he was sad, like he saw that and was like,
That's true. Yeah, they were at the museum and Brendan Fraser was like, my people. And just crawled into this exhibit and tried to make fire for the people and was crying, actually really in a very heartbreaking kind of way. That was a really sad shot of him trying to make fire. For a moment, I felt something.
I was actually wondering at that point, like, did his character know what had happened? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, did he think he was teleported somewhere else? Or... Right. Does he understand the time thing? Like, has that kicked in? Because like you mentioned earlier, he is insanely smart. Within like a week, he's like, picking up complicated dance. He can dance better than I can, and I have years of experience.
Sorry, this is a podcast, so what people didn't see was were the
I
quotation
was quoting
marks.
which I don't actually even know what those quotes mean, but I'm a bad dancer. But I've done it enough, it's been a long grind, and he just watches a couple of music videos, and then he's like shredding it at the prom, 3 weeks later.
By the way, that was a horrible scene, and that went on way too long, and I was like, what is the point of this? That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. All right. I just want to say the villain character, Matt Wilson, I actually really liked him. Like, not as a person, like he's a bad guy, he's the crappy boyfriend, but the casting and like his performance is like perfect. I love it. And I sent you that GIF of the scene where they're in the classroom and you see like Sean Astin wave, and then Robin looks at him, and then he just like slides into frame and shakes his head. Oh, it's so good. If you spend any time on Twitter, you'll see that from time to time. And then that scene at the end, he does have a great line delivery, which is when he yells, "Shush!"
Matt, will you just stop this already?
Shush!
Yeah.
It's just like ridiculous. But that whole part did make no sense, because basically what happens is like he kind of pieces things together. They break into the school, they get the records, and they're like, this is a dog's medical record. And then he breaks into Dave's house and like conveniently, just total, fluke, finds the picture frame that the Polaroids are in, and he's like, these prove he's a caveman.
The Polaroids that they took when they first dug him out of the ground, and he was still frozen in his human ice pop.
Yeah, which, like, even if you just looked at those pictures, I don't know if you would know what's going on. You'd be like, what is this? What is this? Oh, hey, here's that guy, Mm-hmm. The fact that he pieced it all together is pretty impressive. But so he figures that out, and then he's like, all right, I'm going to go to prom and then speak the truth. So he gets up on stage and he's, gives this rousing speech about like something is afoot here. And then he says, he is a caveman. And then everyone starts cheering. And then he's like, wait. And that actually was probably the most realistic part of the movie, is that like, if someone went on stage and said that after all this buildup, like you'd think he's just insulting the guy.
Yeah.
Not actually stating he's a literal caveman. So it all just kind of fell flat on his face. And then he, it gets wacky. He falls in a cake, punch on his face.
Yeah, it's weird because this is where we're kind of jumping to the end, but I think that's fine. This is where Robin is at the prom with Link, and then Sean Astin, like Dave, shows up and tries to like defend Link maybe. But all that happens is, like, he gets punched out. Was I just not paying attention? Was I just bored at this point? Because I feel like they were just like, hey, get out of here, guy. And then he somehow is the hero in Robin's eyes. And she's like, what you did was pretty cool. Those are her actual words. What you did was pretty cool. And then he's like, hey, I got to show you something. And she's like, what? And then he kisses her and she's into it all of a sudden. What did he do? What happened? It's really, first of all, this is a bad message to be sending to young men and women. But secondly, what? I'm so confused. I might have missed something though, because I honestly wasn't paying much attention at that point.
I think you caught it. I think that was basically it. So like, okay, I said earlier, a little bit of redemption I'll give him, like, just because after he tries to abandon Brendan Fraser and he's really angry at her on the phone, he then decides not to go to prom, and he's going to send Link to go, and he actually makes like a sort of selfless decision there. I'm just going to stay home, and Link can go to prom and have fun. I mean, it's not, hey, small victory when you compare it to everything else. But then dude comes in and takes the pictures, and then he's like, I gotta go. At this point, you don't know if it's about saving him or saving Link. It could go either way on that one. So he goes up there, and then Link is already on stage, and the truth has come out, and like Link punches the guy. He just runs up trying to get the pictures, and then the guy punches him, and then Link punches the bully, and then that's about it. So like his big sacrifice or brave move was like running on stage to try and get the pictures that showed evidence of his crime. I don't know if it's a crime, but whatever happened, the truth would have come out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even brave.
Yeah. And then she's like all jazzed about it and kisses him. And what? I don't know. Anyway, can we go back to the nightclub, day club for a second?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Should we talk about the on the way to the club, they drive a car sideways, like all the way through town.
That's true. That happens right before that.
Which is like, guys, this is getting a little silly.
Yeah. It's driving class at school. And somehow, I don't know how, Link ends up in that class unsupervised. Why? Anyway, more questions I have. So he ends up just happened to be driving with Robin. They happen to be paired up. And Sean Astin, well, Dave and Stoney see them from across, I don't know, they're in some sort of class. And they're like, uh-oh. They managed to get in the car just in time. And then Link does like stunt driving all over Encino. Like they're literally on the side of the car for maybe the whole scene.
I bet you even making that was way more difficult. Like you could have written that scene where like they do the sideways wheel thing, but then they end up driving normally. And then Link, because he's been playing the racing game so much, decides to just continue driving around town and they can't tell him to stop. And then you would have the advantage of not having to film every scene with the car kind of sideways like that. But they decided that was what they were going to do, even though it's completely insane and was a lot of more work.
Yeah. And then he just like, I don't know the technical term. He just parks the car in a way that no human ever parks a car.
Oh, he does the cool, like, drift turn thing. I should know what that's called. There's a word for that.
Fast and Furious.
Yeah, he Fast and Furious is it.
Yeah, he Fast and Furious is it. And then they all get out of the vehicle, and I don't know why, but they all go into a club.
I think because... Oh, wait. Okay, I just realized something that was confusing me before. I think they were going to get in trouble for stunt driving around town, so they ran inside the bar, which is why the police came later. I was confused about that.
Right. Okay, so anyway, they're in this bar. It is like maybe 2 p.m. outside. The bar looks like...
And they're all children.
Yeah, they're all in high school.
To be.
They're seniors, right? Is that the last year of school for Americans? You're a senior?
Yes. But I mean, they're children. They're still
children.
A child.
They're 17 or 18 years old. And they go into this club. Okay. There were like, maybe like, it looked like a group of Rastafarians. And then it looked like a group of like Latino gangsters all hang out at the same club. And Pauly Shore starts drinking tequila with the gang. Like these, I don't know what the fuck was going. I was like, who are the patrons of this place? Because it was also packed. People were on the dance floor. People were going hard on the booze. Robin gets on a table.
If you've ever been to a bar where people are like hitting the booze hard at 2 p.m, it is not like a dance club like the one in this movie.
Yeah. This was like something out of like a futuristic, like a sci-fi monster movie where like all the like people from the underbelly of the city, that's what this place was. This is not a real, actual, nothing like this exists in life. If it does, I challenge anyone to find me a place like this that exists, and I want to go to there because that is nutso.
Yeah, I was confused at what the vibe of that place was. Like, what exactly was going on there? When they first walked in there, like, there was the music playing, and I thought it was a gay bar at first. I thought that was what they were going for. Yeah. I think because when they first showed all the people in there, it looked like it was all men. I was like, oh, okay, But then clearly that wasn't the case. But it was just like this packed dance club at 2 p.m. with like diverse racial stereotypes hanging out.
Yeah, it was so weird. Oh boy!
But we did get it was worth it for the payoff, which was the Spanish phrase they introduced earlier in the movie. I didn't think that would pay off. I thought that was just going to be a funny line. So earlier in the movie, they're all in Spanish class, and they got these headsets on, which looks really expensive. And they learn the phrase "the cheese is old and moldy," which I was like, "That's funny." And then, Link gets in a scuffle with one of the guys in the bar over a lady, and he says that line, and they all start laughing, and a good time is had by all. Then the cops come.
Yeah.
I was confused because, okay, yeah, just now I made the connection. I think the reason the cop showed up was to arrest them for the car stuff, right?
Yeah, maybe, and then also they're
like raid
underage
the place.
in a bar. Yeah, well, and
like everybody clears out immediately. So I'm like, wait a minute, is this like some kind of illegal bar?
Yeah, this is some sort of like speakeasy, like Encino, like 1990s speakeasy kind of vibes.
Yeah, like you can't serve liquor before 2 p.m.
Yeah,
so they do it illegally.
I really would like to see like a spin-off or a sequel, which they actually they hinted at in the ending of this movie, but of
I got
just
things to
what
say about the
happens in
sequel.
that bar. I want it to take place in that bar.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, Link should get somehow at the end of the first movie, Link gets the bar, and he's just like a cool bartender, and he's just like saying funny things to people and jumping around on stuff.
Yeah.
They have to they recast Pauly Shore for some reason because he got too famous by then, and then they just have like some other guy doing the same bit, and it's the worst thing you've ever seen. Oh, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, so they had this bad Terminator reference.
Oh yeah,
because
okay.
he saw like a clip of Terminator 1, 2.
Terminator 1. So this actually would have been before Terminator 2, and I think Terminator 1 was a success. Like, I think it was fairly well regarded, but like Terminator 2 was when it was like huge. So,
right.
So this might actually be like somewhat not an obscure reference, but not as hokey as it seems today.
Just because it was so what?
Because Terminator 2. Never mind, this isn't important. I'm saying because Terminator 2 hadn't come out yet, like this is still the era where there was only one Terminator movie, and it had happened like 6 years before.
Okay, yeah, okay, I see what like the I'll be back like.
Yeah, I don't know if it was that overplayed yet in pop culture.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it was like because I don't know when Brendan Fraser says it, when Link says it, but it was stupid. Oh, they were in a convenience store.
They were like harassing. That was the only point in the movie where I didn't like Pauly Shore's character, where I was just like, you know what, fuck you, man. They were just being kind of like he was just being a butthead in that convenience store.
Yeah, and then they left, and Brendan Fraser pops his head in and puts sunglasses on and says, "I'll be back," in perfect English, which he doesn't speak.
Well, and perfect context. Like, he knew what that meant, I guess. Did he pick up from the movie that you say it as you like exit a place or something? Yeah.
Weird. And then at the very end, the last thing we see is Pauly Shore with shades on, popping into frame going, "I'll be back." Does he say buddy? No.
Yes. No, I don't.
The credits say buddy. They are typed out.
Right. So I missed that line at the end the first time because basically as soon as like the first credit started, I just like hit stop and walked away. I was like, we're done. I wasn't waiting around for any like Marvel in the next Encino Man picture.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, well, that's presumptuous of them considering how horrible this movie is.
And they really set up a sequel like in the last 2 minutes. Like, yeah. With Cave Nug, which is his girlfriend from the opening scene, which was actually kind of nice. I like that, hey, good for him. And I don't know,
Chekhov's cave woman.
Yeah. You don't know what happened to her at the beginning. But yeah, so they just like literally like walk into a room and they're like, "Hey, we found her. Here's your girlfriend."
Yeah, and she's just taking a bubble bath. She just knew how to put bubbles in a bath and what a bath was, or what like water would come anyway. And
or what hot
where
water
was her?
was.
Where was she? Was she just like? Did she have to dig herself out of like a shallow, like wet dirt mud grave? Like what?
So in the middle of the party, she just like crawls out of the pool. Oh.
Like Poltergeist style.
But like everyone is partying, so they don't notice, and she just ran inside.
And they're just like, yeah, girl.
Yeah, she's crazy.
Yeah, woo!
Knows how to party.
Yeah.
So they did make a sequel.
What?
It's called Encino Woman. It's a 1996 TV movie. You can't find anything about this movie. I went on YouTube, and there's like a random 8-minute chunk of the movie, like from somewhere in the middle, which was interesting to watch. And then the comments are people like, how can I get this movie? And then whoever posted the video is like, send me your email address and I'll send you a link. And like, that's the way to get this movie, I guess, because you can't find it anywhere else. So I'm thinking I might email that person just to see it.
Oh my God. That's horrifying.
I guess the plot of that one is they thaw a prehistoric woman, Lucy, who ultimately becomes a model for a cosmetics company. So in the scene I watched,
God.
like she was already like this super famous model.
That's kind of funny. But I also hate that so much. Oh,
so,
the 90s.
I'll seek it out. I mean, they're going to remake this at some point, right? It's going to happen.
If I would not be like that, nobody pays a writer to write anything anymore. It's just like, hey, change this to be contemporary, and we're gonna just go rolling on this one. It's. Anyway.
I mean, okay,
really
here's what they should do.
Topics tonight.
This is my idea for an Encino Man reboot, okay? It's someone... okay. But it would be funnier if it was someone who got frozen in the 90s and thought, in 2020. I'm choking. I'm dying.
You got too excited.
I got too excited about Encino Man 2020. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, you could easily reboot this. Like, you just got to write a bunch of goofy jokes about how different the world is today from caveman times.
I think this is interesting. I think every time we revisit a movie, we should consider the reboot. Who do you think would star in the reboot if this was made today?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, you need, I don't know. You need someone who's good at physical comedy and like...
Who's like could play high school age. I think we're too old to even know who anybody.
Oh, so we'd make the worst casting decisions, which means we're the right people for this job.
Who would you like to see as Link?
Michael Fassbender.
What?
I don't know. It's a dark and gritty reboot.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. I had some options going through my head, but I think let's just leave it at Michael Fassbender.
I can't think of any like current actors who are like really into like physical comedy, just because I'm not really a big fan of that, I guess. Dane Cook. There we go. Dane Cook from 10 years ago. Oh,
right.
Actually,
I was going to say Pauly Shore, Chris D'Elia 10 years ago, but also not because of just... Everyone just not anymore because of their pissy, shitty behavior.
Because of news.
Because of news, because of being informed.
Yeah.
Well.
And maybe it would probably be directed by the guy who made The Hangover. Zach Galifianakis. There you go. Zach Galifianakis as Link.
Plays a high school student. Or are they just like, they just like some construction workers? And
do they got to be in high
something?
school? I keep forgetting that they're all supposed to be like kids. Because like Brendan Fraser,
no.
Pauly Shore is in his 8th year of high school in this movie, and like Brendan Fraser is a giant. Sean Astin looks like he's in high school.
Yeah,
that's about it. Everyone else looks.
Sean
too
Astin
old.
still looks like he's in high school.
Yeah, he's got good genes.
Okay, you know who I would? Okay, I would put it on a construction site. That makes more sense. And Zach Galifianakis is like, I've been waiting for that foreman position. And Robin's like the accounting manager. She comes on site once in a while, and she's so beautiful. But she's dating like the current foreman, and he's a real dick. I don't know. That's my vision.
This sounds good. I'd watch it.
He needs a sidekick though. Who's his goof sidekick?
I don't know. I mean, Zach Galifianakis is like, he's the wacky guy, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah.
He could either be the caveman.
Oh, Jason Mantzoukas. There.
As who? The Pauly Shore?
As Pauly Shore. As just the lunatic.
Okay, yeah, that
the
could work.
The sweet lunatic.
Well, look forward to that. If you are if you own the rights to Encino Man, I mean, I guess we just said all this and they can just steal it. Can we copyright this before we release it?
This is of this. These are all of our thoughts and ideas, and you can't take them. I think that's binding, right?
You just have to make that incantation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One other minor detail that kind of confused me about this movie. It has a lot of songs in it that I've heard before, but these are like bad cover versions. So like Mama Said Knock You Out and Wooly Bully both have cover ones, and they're both not good. I don't know if that was a licensing thing or they were just trying to be different.
Oh God. I didn't hear any music. No, that's how bleak this was for me.
There was a lot of music in this movie.
I didn't notice any of it, except for the stupid dance break at the end.
Some of it was like, I don't know if these were actual... there was I'm Too Sexy by Right Said Fred.
Okay, yes. I do remember that. That's the only scene that I remembered from this movie when I rewatched it. I remember that. Because I remember that movie, or that song was so funny to us when we were kids. Like, it was like, oh, it's sexy. Like...
Can't say that.
And that's the kind of humor, like, you know, he's like, what's a toothbrush? That got us really cracking up when we were kids. So I do remember that scene.
I think that scene would have been used in the trailer a bunch. I don't remember the trailer, but I just feel like I know that's the case.
Yeah. Again, fish out of water story. Are there any that are not that we're going to ever watch?
Yeah, it's the universal tale.
Yeah. Well, don't watch this movie. I shouldn't say that. I would not watch this movie again. Personally.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm definitely I'm you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to periodically look up the part where he says shush, because that's funny. I think I'm just going to cut the audio from that and find something to do with it. But otherwise, it's not great unless you're like a big Pauly Shore head.
And you know what? I have to say, I don't know why I have these angry feelings toward Pauly Shore. Did he do something horrible at some point?
Okay, here I don't think he's done anything bad. I don't think it's that. I think the resentment towards Pauly Shore is two things. One, he was in a ton of movies in a really short period of time that were like big. Okay, so 1992, Encino Man, Class Act. Was he the lead in that? No, okay, he was just featured in that. Son-in-Law, he was the lead in that. That's 1993. Right. In the Army Now, 1994. A Goofy movie, he was like the kid character, right. I think. Biodome, 1996. So he was just around huge. A lot, and maybe people were not so into him being around in all the movies for 4 years.
Just because he's so distinctly Pauly Shore, and it's just too much?
Yeah.
Like in too short a time frame?
So the other thing is his mom, I believe, owned the Comedy Store. She owns like one of the big comedy clubs. And that is, if you're a comedian trying to get on stage, like it's a very competitive environment and you got to like, you know, hustle and you're, you know, fighting to get on there. If your mom owns a comedy club, you might have a little bit of an advantage there to sort of like building up a career really quick. Yeah, son of Mitzi Shore, who founded the Comedy Store. So there you go. So I think that's why a lot of like comedy types are not big fans. Is like he didn't pay his dues. I don't know what the actual story is. Like who knows what kind of hustling he actually did. But I think that in and of itself is going to bring up some resentment.
I'm really interested to now go and do more Pauly Shore research, because I went into this thinking I was going to like hate this guy. Because I remember he didn't maybe have a great reputation or something. But look, if you like Pauly Shore, watch this movie. If you don't care about Pauly Shore or dislike Pauly Shore, do not watch this movie, is what my recommendation is. I give this movie like 2 nugs 11.
Yeah, I give it 1.5 moldy cheeses out of 8. Out of 8 years of Pauly Shore being in high school in this movie.
All right. Well, buddy.
We gotta do the finger thing that makes that sound effect.
Yeah. Well, people can't see, but we'll do it for ourselves through the interweb.
Yeah, so just in the context, you know, if you haven't watched the movie yet, they do this thing where like they twiddle their fingers together, which is like, okay, but they always overlay the sound effect of like some, I don't know what it is. But anyway, we're doing that.
That also dies out fast. Also, when you say twiddle your fingers together, it upsets me. Please don't.
Yeah, the whole thing is upsetting. We'll be back next week to, fuck, what are we watching again? Completely forgot.
Pee-wee.
Oh, yeah.
Big Adventure?
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.